And we are learning that much of a Ukrainian tank factory has been leveled after Russian strikes. This is about some 85 miles west of Kyiv. The area has seen intense shelling in recent days. And a new video just coming in from the city of Irpin on the outskirts of Kyiv. You see jets there flying overhead, and then a massive explosion with plumes of black smoke billowing from the rubble there. Needless to say, the massive bombardment caused incredible damage, many buildings going up in flames. All of this as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky urges his people to keep up the resistance against the Russian onslaught.
Українці в усіх наших містах.
Ukrainians in all our cities where the enemy invaded, go on the offensive, go out on the streets. We need to fight every time we have an opportunity.
Now, this comes as the temporary ceasefire in parts of eastern Ukraine to let civilians get to safety is now on hold after allegations Russian fighters violated the agreements of that ceasefire. Russia blames Ukraine. And that Ukrainian resistance indeed being seen in actions both by the civilian population and its military. CNN's Arlette Saenz with that.
Tonight, new images emerging from the battlefront. Ukrainian armed forces releasing this video of the moment they say they shot down a Russian helicopter. The fire-engulfed aircraft hurtling towards the ground. Here, another Russian aircraft, a fighter jet, falls from the sky. The Ukrainian military says it took down the plane, smoke billowing in its wake as it crashed into a residential neighborhood about 90 miles from Kyiv. The Ukrainian Emergency Services says these are the remains of the jet, bombs undetonated mere steps from homes, the scenes of war. A war Ukrainians continue to fight with limited help from Western allies. In a Zoom call with U.S. lawmakers, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky calling for greater military assistance, including the transfer of fighter jets from Eastern European countries and the establishment of a no-fly zone. The U.S. and NATO still resisting such a move, warning it could prompt a full-scale war in Europe.
A no-fly zone might be just a bridge too far that I'm not willing to take that type of risk right now. A U.S. plane shooting down another Russian plane or vice versa is something that could really escalate to a nuclear war.
Russian President Vladimir Putin declaring that any country or organization implementing a no-fly zone would be considered participants in the conflict. And as Ukraine pushes for more sanctions, Putin stating the sanctions already imposed on his country are equivalent to a declaration of war against Russia. On the ground in Ukraine, a show of solidarity from the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken side by side with the Ukrainian foreign minister on the Polish border.
And as to the pressure on Russia, not only is it unprecedented, not only is it producing very, very concrete results in Russia, but that pressure too will not only continue, it will grow until this war of choice is brought to an end.
Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett today also speaking by phone with Zelensky after a face-to-face meeting with Putin in Moscow. Meanwhile, one senior Western intelligence official warns that Russia now seems prepared to bombard cities into submission, with the U.S. officials saying Russia is poised to deploy 1,000 more mercenaries in the near future. But with the war in its 10th day, stories of Ukrainian bravery in the face of Russian aggression continue to spread. Watch as a man jumps on top of a Russian armored vehicle, waving a Ukrainian flag. And sounds of gunfire in a small town in northeastern Ukraine as unarmed protesters stood their ground. In this chilling video, a man in the front of the crowd appears to be shot in the street. Another video shows protesters scattering as a barrage of gunfire rings out. Tonight, Ukraine's foreign minister with a new message for Putin.
Putin, leave Ukraine alone. You will not win this war.
Arlette Saenz, CNN.
Now, the United Nations gravely concerned about the situation here in Ukraine and is receiving increasing reports of civilian casualties, perhaps unsurprisingly, seeing the munitions being dropped all over this country. The UN says at least 331 civilians have been killed, 675 wounded since Russia launched its invasion on February 24. And of that total, 19 Ukrainian children have been killed. They also note the actual numbers are likely to be much higher than that. Well, many others rushing to get out of the country while they still can. CNN's Clarissa Ward was in Irpin, where many of the evacuees are visibly shaken as they escape their war-torn home for an uncertain future.
For 7 days, the Kyiv suburb of Irpin has been pummeled by Russian strikes. And you can see it in the faces of those leaving. Exhaustion, fear, and gratitude to the soldiers helping them flee. This bridge was downed by the Ukrainians to prevent Russian forces from getting into the city center. Now it's yet another hurdle people must cross.
There has been a steady barrage of artillery since we got here just over an hour ago, and a never-ending stream of people just desperately trying to cross to safety.
Natalia tells us she was injured just a couple of hours earlier. We tried to get some stuff out of our apartment, she says, and a shell or something hit, and I got hit by shrapnel. Still in shock, she dismisses the pain and walks away unaided. Others need more assistance. Soldiers carry a makeshift stretcher to ferry an elderly woman to safety. President Putin has said his army is not targeting civilians. But the exodus from Irpin tells a different story. Everyone steps in where they can, including us. An elderly woman calls out for help, clearly confused by the chaotic situation. We take one of her bags.
So people are obviously incredibly affected by this situation. They're frightened, they're exhausted, they're on edge.
They leave behind whatever they cannot carry, with no sense of when they will return. A woman approaches, completely overcome.
Конечно, she said, I'm afraid. Конечно, боитесь.
For what, she cries. For what? This is just one suburb in one city that has felt the wrath of Russia's onslaught. Artillery, missiles, and fighter jets. The planes were flying, and I just covered my ears, Olga Kudlai tells us.
She's saying that now she doesn't even know where she's going to go next.
She has lived in Irpin for 45 years. It was so beautiful, and now it's destroyed, she says. What are they trying to achieve? To bring us to our knees? But against all odds, 10 days into this war, Ukraine is still standing. A woman waits to be evacuated, trembling but resilient. We will overcome everything, she says. For the people of Irpin, the journey is just beginning. They're loaded onto buses to the train station. From there, they don't know where they will go. Clarissa Ward, CNN, Irpin.